welcome back to the channel. And it's that time of year again where we like to give out some awards. We're wrapping up our 2023. So first I'm going to bring you my 2023 top 20 characters. So these are bookish characters that I've read throughout 2023 and I've ranked them. Obviously there were hundreds of characters, as I'm sure anyone that reads 50 or more books are going to have hundreds of characters, but these are the ones that really stood out to me. And I'm going to start with a couple of kind of light-hearted, smaller characters. And at number 20 is Porthos from the Three Musketeers. And I feel like Porthos is a very relatable character. We've all met someone like Porthos. He's a showman. He's a bit of a braggart, but he's a good-natured and courageous gentleman. And he adds a bit of levity to Three Musketeers. Not that it is a story lacking in levity, but I feel like he is really the crux of that. At number 19 is Lara, and she is the cook in the White Tower in The Wheel of Time. And I saw her appear in the third and fourth books of Wheel of Time this year. And she is a really kind of warm, motherly figure. She has her own kind of motivations, and she is a unique perspective point, I think, in that series, and one that I really appreciated. Number 18 is Hector from the Iliad. Now Hector, do I need to spoil a story that's thousands of years old? Hector has a very tumultuous story in the Iliad. He is a character, again, where you can see several different sides of his personality. He is very courageous, he is a man of action, but at the same time you get to see his weaknesses and his fears come through as well, and I thought he's a very well realised character in that story. And number 17, we have Erd. Now, Erd is like your nan, basically, but imagine if your nan was a complete badass and was a witch and could summon kind of like animals from nature, and she could control the elements. Erd's a really great character from The Way of Idan, especially, though she did appear in The Prophet of Idan as well. I think in The Way of Idan, she was one of the greatest characters in that novel, and definitely Erd deserves to be on the list. And number 16 is Saed, and I will say more for the Final Empire. I found it was a book of great characters, the Final Empire, but Saed was one that I really latched onto, one that I could relate to. He's like a very bookish character. He's a little bit reserved, but he's also kind of the glue that holds the team together sometimes. And yeah, Saed in at number 16. And number 15 is another character from Mistborn, and that is Spook. And that is really for his part in The Hero of Ages, where he is kind of a pseudo Batman, and it's really nice to see a character come from being a young teenager and kind of like a comedy support act, and then become really a very influential and dangerous character in the final book. And number 14, I'm going with R.D. West, a character that didn't make last year's list, despite being a very strong character from the First Law universe, but I felt like R.D. West was a character that was consistent and very entertaining throughout all three books, and really helped establish a couple of our larger characters in the world, made them feel more realised through R.D. A very strong female character, and one that we've all known someone like R.D. Someone that maybe has issues in the background and maybe uses something, a coping mechanism. And I think it was really well realised in that book, particularly. Right, number 13 is Prince Florizel of Bohemia. Now, Prince Florizel comes from the New Arabian Nights by R.L. Stevenson, and he's a character who's very flamboyant. He's an adventure seeker. He is someone that wants to push the envelope, and he really does propel most of those short stories, especially throughout the first half of New Arabian Nights. And he's a character that is very entertaining indeed. Number 12 is Elend Venture. That's right, a third character from the Mistborn series of books, and one that I believe had a more complete arc. I don't feel like, despite how drawn I was to several of the characters in Mistborn, they necessarily had complete character arcs, but I felt like Elend really went through a lot of growth, and he had led a very sheltered life, and he has been exposed to a lot of things that he was never expecting to be, and he's a good point of view character for the reader, I find, in that way. And I think Ellen Venture really stood out to me as the series wore on as one of the stronger characters. At number 11, I'm going for a character from The Stand. Now, there were so many good characters from The Stand, but one stood out like a sore thumb for me, and he's such a different style of character to everything else on this list. And I'll go with the Kid. The Kid was a character that I believe was, not really present in the original version of The Stand, but in the complete Stand, he is an abhorrent character, and he is one that really goes to show you what kind of character that our main antagonist is attracting. The real dregs of society. This isn't a very abusive individual. This is a character with a very huge ego. Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Just that stuck in my head so much. It's a character that brings great comedy and also is revolting to read and to consider, and is an important, I think, is an important kind of texture against the good characters in the story. We get to see some of the bad characters in the Stand from a sympathetic angle, not so much with the Kid. You want him to get his comeuppance in the Stand, and that's why he's on my list. I know it's a weird pick. Number 10 is Rudolf Razendale. Sorry, it's a really hard name to pronounce, and that is from The Prisoner of Zender. Now, he is your classic, men's adventure character, I suppose. He is a man of means. He comes across into Europe to kind of go on an adventure, and he gets himself up to his neck in trouble. But he takes it in good humour, and he really is a man of action. He gets on with things, and he's a great vehicle for that story for sure. And number 9 is Death from the Discworld books. Now, mostly for the Hogfather this year, though he does tend to pop up in most of the Discworld books. In the Hogfather, he is really having to take on the role of Father Christmas, and it's a lot of opportunities for humour, and it is very well executed. He has a very unique voice, shall we say, in those books, and yeah, he was fantastic this year. Number 8 is one of the most despicable villains I've ever read, and that's Captain Torrance from the Sharp books, namely from Sharp's Fortress. Captain Torrance is an aristocrat, and he is one of the most stuck up and pretentious people you can imagine. He only thinks of himself, and it is great when characters like that are so you love to hate him, and Captain Torrance is definitely one of those. Number 7 is Dandelion. Dandelion is a character that is very relatable. He is a womanizer. He is a very vain person, and he creates several opportunities throughout the Witcher books for levity. Not that they are lacking in levity, but he is really the main source there. And he is also like an instrument to create amusing scenarios in the stories, and none other than in The Sword of Destiny. He has a story in there which is hilarious, and mostly because of the character that he is. And number 6, back once again from last year's list, is Poirot. Hercule Poirot is an amazing character, a very well realised character, and one that allows a lot of interplay with other characters that come into the story, and that was really shone through in the short story collection Poirot Investigates. Though I did read more than one book with Poirot in it this year, he is a character that it always brings a smile to my face. And number 5 is Corporal Nobby Nobbs from Guards. Though he did appear also in The Hogfather this year, he is a character that I know well. He's a bit of a creature. He's a bit of a cretin. He's he means well, but he is basically a bit of a mess, a bit of a disaster. He's forever scruffily dressed. He doesn't wash very much. He's always got a dirty dog end behind his ear. And he's got a very bleak outlook on life, but he is a very fun character for sure. And number 4, and we're really getting to the high stakes characters now, is Matrim Coulton from The Wheel of Time. Matt has really gone through in books 3 and 4 a real change of character. He is very much like the series Han Solo now. His unique kind of gimmick is his luck. Matt has been affected by his connection to the horn and the dagger, and now he has this kind of ability to manipulate odds, and the lie of probabilities lies in Matt's favour almost always, and that creates some really unique scenes in those books, and it's something that's so well realised by Jordan. I am in love with that character now, a character that for the first kind of book and a half I enjoyed, but now we're at a new level with Matt for sure. Number 3 is John Gwynn's own Robin Hood. It's Camlin. Camlin is a character that goes through a very complete arc. He's a bit of a villainous character. He's not very trustworthy. He has a very low opinion of himself. He then becomes someone that can be relied on. He's a very resourceful man. He is like a Robin Hood. He's a forester, and he becomes a very interesting character to the stories. And then slowly he becomes more fatherly. He becomes, a heartwarming character for the series, and it's really lovely to see that full journey over 4 books for Camlin. At number 2, a character that almost came number 1, and that's Captain Kennet. Throughout the live ship trailers, Captain Kennet, we don't necessarily know everything about Kennet. We are drip fed his background over the pace of several thousand pages, and he is a character that has a lot of complex issues, and he is a character with very complex motivations that all come and kind of converge in that final book in the live ship trailers so well that he's a character you should never feel sorry for, but it's hard not to feel sorry for a character despite all the terrible things he does when you know kind of why those things have occurred in the first place. An amazing character, well written by Robin Hobb. But number 1 is a character that I enjoyed very much in the first book of the trilogy this year, but by the final book might have been the most 3D and well realised character I read this year, and that is the High Priest Yuran. So his character is one I felt like I could really relate with, someone that I thought I'd met before in the first book, The Way of Idan, and he had become kind of a plot point character in the second book, one where that kind of pulls strings and helps the story move along. And by the third book, Yuran is someone that we can really get into the head of, someone that has gone through a full character arc, which again is something I really like, and someone that is a really interesting point of view for the reader, that allows us to explore bigger themes than the character would normally allow us to. And I think by the times Return to Idan comes around, High Priest Yuran was kind of an easy pick for number 1 character of the year. So all praise goes to him and that character, well written by Philip Chase. That is my top 20 characters of 2023. Let me know in the comments below if there's any characters that have stood out for you this year.